Yo, what those welcome back to Reviews with Jake, where I just got done watching Gunpowder Milkshake. Gunpowder Milkshake is a new film on Netflix with a star-stacked cast about a couple generations of hit women who get tossed into some high water. It's way more complicated than that, perhaps to a fault, but that about sums it up. This bad boy was dropped on Netflix the exact same day as a classic horror story, so you bet your ass I had quite a Wednesday a few weeks back. I know it doesn't need to be said, but Netflix game, seriously strong. I mean, two bangers coming out the exact same day? In the middle of the damn week? This week's episode is brought to you by Netflix. Go to netflix.com/reviewswithjake to receive absolutely nothing except for probably a page cannot be found screen. Don't miss this deal and support the little guys over at Netflix. They really need your help. Bottom line is I was stoked to review this movie. Stoked for the double feature that I had a few weeks back. Obviously I started with a classic horror story first because it's me we're talking about. But that does not mean I was not super jazzed about some blood-spatting, face-pounding fun. Let's start things off with the cast because it truly was stacked. Karen Gillan, Lena Headey, Angelina Bassett, Paul Giamatti. I mean, they threw some serious coin at the talent on screen here. And they all did great and almost certainly had a lot of fun in the process. This is a very absurd, self-aware, and fun movie filled with ridiculous characters and scenarios. It very rarely takes itself very seriously, which makes it a very nice, fun, carefree watch. You just get to kick back in your chair, watch some super talented actresses, have a lot of fun, and kick a lot of ass. The fight choreography in this film was outstanding. Some wider shots, longer takes that really let some amazing stunt work really do its thing. I hear a lot of John Wick parallels being drawn to this movie, which rightfully so, not only because of the plot, we'll get to that later, but because of the awesome fight choreography, but I'm shocked I'm not hearing more parallels being drawn to Matthew Vaughn. Because not only did the fight scenes have great choreography, it also had some serious style to them, like straight out of the Kingsman films. The kind of action sequences that make you marvel at the screen and ask, how the hell did they do that? It looked so damn good. The direction of this film, especially during the action sequences, was top shelf stuff. The creative cinematography, the smooth slow motion, the vibrant use of light and color. This film was a lot of fun whenever the RPMs kick up. And it was not afraid to dish out a lot of blood. I mean, like I said, this movie is very ridiculous and absurd, and sometimes the violence was set to match. It almost felt like a Tarantino film. The blood was liberal, the punches land, it was stylized and beautiful. I mean, it was really hard for me to not have a stupid ass grin on my face while watching it. However, that being said, I do think that they went a little overboard with the stylization at times, and that does lead me to the cons. It's kind of like if pizza's your favorite food, it's a treat when you have it, but if you have it every single day of the week, it kind of loses its magic a little bit. Same goes with the stylized approach of this film. While I did really enjoy it, and it was one of the stronger aspects of the film, I think they went a little too overboard with it. Whether it's using slow motion in an instance that doesn't necessarily call for it, or randomly cutting to a GoPro camera in the midst of a car chase. Several instances where they use split focusing, which I've expressed in the past have a serious disdain for, or just having weird framing and compositions in general, like having a conversation in a diner where two people are looking at each other and they have like the negative space set behind each of them as they cut between them. Like it's on some Mr. Robot. Like, I don't know, it just kind of came off a little pretentious. Which is a bummer to say because when the style feels merited, it really works. But when it doesn't feel merited, when it doesn't fit, it just feels distracting more than anything. I also thought that they went a little overboard with the soundtrack from several perspectives. For starters, they rarely let the soundtrack end, let the scene marinate without any underlaying music underneath. It kind of just flowed from one song to the next constantly throughout the whole 2-hour runtime. It kind of just felt like there was always music playing, at least in some capacity, and sometimes the transition from one cut of music to the next almost felt too abrupt, too bumpy. On top of that, some of the music that they were using in general wasn't that great either. Some of it was really repetitive, while others were just kind of, I don't know, generic. It kind of sounded like royalty-free stock music. And sometimes the style, vibe, and tempo just didn't fit what was happening on screen. Overall, the jams that this movie was giving me just didn't really do much, which is kind of a bummer. My eyes were getting the royal treatment, my ears just kind of felt left out. My emotions also weren't getting a lot of attention from several perspectives as well. For starters, the film lacks any real substantial, noteworthy humor or heart. The lack of heart is not very surprising and forgivable. I mean, it is a very self-aware, absurd film, so I'm not shocked that it doesn't have heart, but it did try. It tries to make you feel here and there, and you just You just don't. It pauses the mayhem every now and then to marinate on a plot point like you're supposed to feel something while you're watching it, but just feels like you were running on a treadmill and someone unplugged it. On the opposite side of the coin, the humor in the film was also kind of disappointing, especially considering how fun the movie actually is. It just kind of constantly hucks jokes at the wall that it misses just as much as it hits. Don't get me wrong, I appreciate how carefree and laid back this movie was for a watch, but that doesn't mean that the jokes always landed. It's like chatting with your friend's dad. Everyone has that dad that thinks they are just hilarious. They're just chucking jokes out left and right, holding their sides in, but none of them are really that funny. You appreciate the sentiment, like it's a carefree conversation, you can be set at ease, but in themselves, it's just not funny. I appreciate you setting the tone, we're here to have some fun, but easy on the jokes, Ned. I mean, just in general, the dialogue in this film just didn't really do much for me, all jokes aside. It was very cheesy, cliche, and I didn't get the sense that they were trying to be tongue-in-cheek. It felt very serious and intentional. If it was sarcastic, it's sarcasm that went right over my head. People just don't talk the way that they talk in this film. They all feel like characters within a fictional story. A fictional story with a plot that face-planted something fierce. I mean, for starters, it was insanely derivative. It follows all the beats of every action hitman film in terms of the backstory as well as all the plot points, especially that of John Wick. John Wick should be named a producer of this film because if it were not for him, this film would not exist. On top of it feeling really unoriginal, it also felt really aimless, like they were making it up as they went. It almost felt like episodic by nature, like in one act, this is the bad guy, take care of him. This is a new bad guy, take care of him. This is the bad guy. Take care of him. There are two main antagonists for the film that are introduced really early on, but then they just kind of disappear and pop back at the end and say, hey, remember me? And neither of them were very compelling. They were just generic-ass bad guys doing generic-ass bad guy things, because that's what generic-ass bad guys do. All in all, this is another 2021 action movie example of a lot of style and little substance, but saying that, the style was pretty damn cool. I would have preferred for it to be a little bit shorter to really amp up the replay value, but I can't deny that I had a lot of fun while watching it. I'm going to give Gunpowder Milkshake a B-. But that's just me. What do you guys think? Let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments below. And make sure to subscribe to this channel to stay up to date with new reviews coming real soon. Stay safe, thanks for checking in.